And we are live. Hello, Gary, and hello to our listeners.
Hello, friend. Happy Tuesday.
Gary, can you believe it? This is week 4.
It's week 4. Summer's over. It's like right there.
Don't say that. Don't say that. That hurts my feelings.
It's right there.
So for me, I realized as I'm getting older, I'm a spring person, and I love spring when the grass starts turning green. It's just the rebirth, and for me, spring is just. I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of fall. Certainly, in
Mm.
most, I'm not a big fan of winter. I grew up in a country where we have snow 9 months of the year, so I left. I went to Connecticut. We only have snow for 5 months, so it is better. But it's funny. My wife loves fall. Um, not so much for me. It's kind of sad when it gets dark.
Mm.
So
Yeah. I
that
like I like a good fall, a little light sweater, a little light breeze,
so you probably look fabulous in it. That's the problem.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm in Florida, right? So it's like 4 months of like just brutal heat and then 8 months of just gorgeous weather. Most of it which feels pretty spring-like, so you'd probably like it down here.
Mhm. So that's my thing. And this weekend, we're gonna go up to Maine. My wife loves Maine, and the kids love Maine. So we gonna spend some time up in Maine. And my wife's family is originally from Maine. So I I see we going north. That's how I kept telling. Are we going south? No, we going north. But
I know it.
with that, I want to say welcome to all of our listeners. This is week 4 of our journey together. So for me, this has been absolutely amazing. And today, we want to kind of pick up of where we left off. We talked about for operators to owners to author and how you turn your story into authority. And so what we want to do today is kind of pick up on that conversation. And because now we are on the final stage of this, that this is all about clarity. It's about courage in creating something that outlives you. So today, um, I'm just deeply respected and deeply grateful for my really good friend, Gary Montalvo. So with that, Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for just engaging in this conversation over the last 4 weeks. If you're just joining us, Christian and I have really been exploring the different stages of being a founder, the different stages of being an entrepreneur, some of the common pitfalls and obstacles that you find on your journey, on your way to growing your business and growing your impact and growing your influence, exploring some of the how leadership plays a key role in that and the evolution of that in the journey. And when we talk about leadership, really like self leadership, not the lead,
Mhm.
the leadership of others is important, but Christian and I are very rooted in the idea that it's much more difficult to lead yourself than it is to lead others. And if you can lead yourself with integrity and grace and ease and clarity and focus, then that's like you're way on your way to being able to impact and lead others. And we've talked a lot about building your authority last week, and the once you have your business in a place where you're systemized and in a place where you can kind of have momentum, then it's time to start building your authority, and that allows you to leverage social impact to not only grow your business but make the impact that we want to make on the planet, right? That
Mhm.
on the world. So thank you for joining us for the last of our conversations. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I loved it, and I'm um, really humbled and honored that you spent these 4 weeks with us. And for me, that there's a few reasons behind it. Number one, we absolutely love what you do. The second thing is, and I said I hate you a little bit for it because you're so good in breaking things down and make some really big projects seem so simple. So we hate you for that, Gary. And but at the end of the day, I'm just really thankful for having the opportunity to get to know more of you, get to kind of look a little bit behind the curtain and see how you think, how you service your clients, and what you do. And
Yeah,
for me, that's just absolutely amazing. So with
a
that,
pleasure.
Gary, let's start at the beginning. So take us back. What it means to be an operator? And for anybody who has missed some of these episodes, just comment below episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. More than happy to send you those. And then also, if you find there's a question, please comment below. Gary and I will answer them as soon as we can. And also, we read every single one of them because we love hearing from you. So, with that, Gary, I turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Operator to owner.
So operator is the first state in the journey, right? So when you first start off building a business, there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of things to set up. You're figuring out not only what your product is, but you're figuring out how you deliver that product,
Hmm.
right? You're starting to set up and just formalize the ideas of what your business is going to be and starting to set them up and implement them. So in this state, you're typically, like the name says, operating, doing a lot of tasks. You are executing a lot of tasks because there's just so much to do. And 80% of what you're trying at this level is really not working, right?
Hmm.
Like this is the throwing spaghetti on the wall phase to kind of figure it out and learn, right? And so this stage is really about learning fast, failing fast. You want to take the action fast. You want to take and you want to implement the lesson fast. This is not a state where you want to start avoiding a lot of mistakes or being careful. I mean, you always want to be careful, you always want to be smart, but what I'm speaking to is you don't want to be so careful that you don't take enough actions, because if you don't take enough actions, you don't move through this state quickly. And the key is to move through this state as quick as possible. Because this is the state where it's about the grind, about the push, about all the stuff that you have to do.
And so I want to kind of drive a point home because when Gary talks about ownership, and ownership is not just about owning a business, it's about owning your time, owning your decisions, and owning your outcomes. So when Gary talks about ownership, I think there's so much more to it. And he has that innate ability of breaking it down and make it sound so simple. So when he talks about this, and I want all of the listeners to understand that he talks about owning all of it, owning your time. How many of us get stuck in that? He talks about owning your decisions. How many of us, sometimes Gary and I were talking about it, we need to come up with a course on make proper decisions because I, some of the individuals we work with make decisions really quick. I learned a long time ago, you make decisions quick, you change your mind slowly. Necessarily a good thing. Okay. But owning your decision is how to make a decision, because who you are today, the business you run today, it's a combined average of all of the decisions you have made. And I want you to kind of be aware of that, because when Gary talks about the ownership, um, it's more than that. And then you are also the owner of all of the outcomes. And for me, that's the coolest thing about it. What do you see is the biggest trap operators falling into? And so now this question is just all of the listeners out there, and so you, Gary. So Gary, when you when you look at it, when people reach out to you, what is one of the big traps people fall, or operators or owners fall into? They really self-consciously don't understand that they're in this, or that they are in this trap and they don't know how to get out of it. So what do you see is the biggest trap
Yeah.
owners, operators fall into?
So one of them we started talking about, a few minutes ago, the idea that you get really hesitant in taking action because you don't
Yeah.
want to make a mistake, right? So that's one of them. The big context one that I think happens in the state is that because you're so busy and because mostly you're putting out fires, in this state there's a lot of like putting out fires,
Yep.
solving problems. And so when you're putting out fires, your head is like this, focusing on the fire and how do I put it out? To being ownership, you have to start looking up,
Mhm.
right? You have to be able to start looking ahead at what's coming at you. You have to start looking at the future. So there's got to be a healthy balance of looking up and looking down.
Yeah.
And so one of the pitfalls is that you just get so bogged down in the day to day, in the putting out fires, in the reacting to the day to day emergencies, that you are not doing enough growth work, the planning,
Yeah.
the innovation, the forecasting where you want to be 6 months, a year from now, anticipating the problems that you are going to have 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. When
Yeah.
you're only focusing on the problems that you have right now, this week, in the next few days, you're not looking out into the future and building the future of the company.
Mhm.
And so it becomes a very reactionary game. And you just become really focused on putting out the fires, and you get very reactionary. That's when you feel like it's a hamster wheel and you're just doing the same things over and over and over and over again, focusing on the never ending to-do list and those types of things, right? So that would be, and again, this state is not bad. This state is very necessary at the beginning of every journey, but you don't want to hang out here too much.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
love
if
that.
you're
I love
stuck here, if your business is stuck here more than a year, you want to start doing some thinking, right? You want to make sure that you're building the business. This conversation with my dad. My dad's an electrician, and he's getting ready to retire now.
that. Mhm.
But he ran a business his whole life where he never left operator mode. He was always, so now he's trying to figure out, well, what do I, like I want to sell my business. I'm like, well, you can't really sell a business that's not systemized, that's
Right.
not, it's the you are the business at that point.
Yeah.
The moment that we pull you out of that business, the business is you and your relationships with your customers. That's
Mhm.
the business. The business is your client list of 25, 30 years. It's valuable, but their loyalties to you,
Yeah.
you know. So that's an example of like what you really don't want to do, right? You want to get out of operator mode quickly. You want to have that be part of the growth trajectory of the business within the
I
first
I love
couple
that.
years, for
I mean,
sure.
Gary, you talk a lot about this, that, especially if you're in the food service industry, if you are a restaurant owner and you're the guy putting out the soup every day, you are the business. And you talk a
Hmm.
lot about that. So I know there's a lot of listeners in here. If you give it, because we also talk about you're the owner of your time. So if you associate time to that, what is the time you feel is an ample amount of time for you to grow the business, kind of start removing yourself from the business, let the business run on its own? So what is the time frame of that?
So that's not really a fair question because every industry is different, every
Mhm.
business is different, and the person with the circumstances, your circumstances are different. So I don't want to answer it in a generic way. What I will say is it needs to be part of your planning from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like if you're launching a business, you want to have from the very beginning how many months out into the future do I see my first hire? Right? How many months into the future do I see these positions being replaced?
Mhm.
And because if you start budgeting for that from the beginning and creating, I always tell people don't build the organizational chart for the business you have now. You build the organizational chart for the business you want to have in 2 or 3 years,
Mhm.
right? You may not be able to fill all those positions right away. You might have other people filling those roles, but now you know what it is that you're growing into and what it is that the game plan is. And you can reverse engineer by when you want to have those positions, how much money needs to be in the budget, how much sales you need to have in order to meet those goals. And then it informs all your planning. But, when you first start out, a lot of people start businesses and their goal is just to cover their costs or to, cover their expenses. And then, they kind of get stuck in that game of just covering your costs of the business. And it's very common to reinvest, any extra money back into the business. So it's not like you have a lot of extra, cash flow, but you want to start doing that planning from the beginning, and it's not optional.
Mhm.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to tap out pretty soon. There's only 24 hours in a day. You have to sleep at least 4 or 5 of them, right? Like, to be functional human being, most of us. So really you have 18 hours a day that you can produce if you're a superhuman, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, you know, so if you're only doing the hours per hours thing, if you're the one that's filling those roles, you can very quickly see the math doesn't add up. You're
Yeah.
gonna tap out on what's possible when you hit your capacity of 18 hours a day, right? Which you shouldn't do. It's awful. I mean, launch your business, that's what you do, right? Like, let's not pretend otherwise. But again, that's not a sustainable game. You have to get to a point where you have to get out of that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And um, for me also, there's two other things I want to overlay. You constantly you always talk about is um, the plan anybody needs to have to get into opening up their own business. And you talk a lot about the plan needs to have all of these things in it, and you help people with that. So, can you talk to us a little bit? Because I know a really good friend of mine. He went into the business because his parents owned the business,
Hmm.
and his parents said, you need to start taking it over. And he was like, oh, okay, I take it over. And so talk to me a little bit about it on planning that section, or what you call the exit strategy. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I mean, we can talk on planning for 7 episodes. I think what I would say is you first need to understand what the goals are
Mhm.
and where you want to be. I think that, again, when you're in operator mode, very often the goal is just survival. Very often the goal is just, and by survival, I mean being able to stay in business, being able to pay the
Mhm.
bills, being able not to, get in a lot of debt, and, those types of day to day survival, financial survival. So the business plan needs to include more than that. Right. And a lot of people, when they go into this, they're scared to kind of push their thinking and their dreaming and their creativity because you can't see how you're gonna get there. So then it's just like your ego is like, just stay here with what you know, stay comfortable, stay safe. And it's like, no, 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 but there's so much possible over there that we can do. You want to get in that game of thinking ahead, dreaming. If this is not your forte, there's plenty of exercises you can do. There's plenty of people you can talk to, but partner up with somebody who can kind of help get this out of you and help get this vision and goals alive.
Mhm.
Once you have that, then you have to start reverse engineering and thinking backwards. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have it. Listen, the vision could be a 10-year vision,
Mhm.
right? It could be a 5-year vision. But all of this informs different things. Is your goal to sell the company after a certain point? Is your goal to create a legacy company that you pass down to your children? Is the goal for you to just, make a little extra cash and have some spending money, right? Like what is it that you foresee your life and this business, the role that this business is going to play? Because all of those are very different conversations, very different trajectories, very different plans,
Mm.
right? And which require different levels of setup, different levels of systemization. If you're creating a legacy business for your family and
Mm.
you're creating a legacy business, a business to sell in 5 years, very different game plan,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Um, so you want to just have clarity around all of those things, right? And then the one thing I will say about planning is where people go wrong is two places. Number one, you create plans that are unrealistic, pie in the sky, right? That it's like, if you tell me, you want to have $1 million in sales next year, but your company has ever done 5 million, I mean, 5K in a month. Well, we have a lot to talk about before we
Mhm.
can get there. So in that case, we need to set up growth steps in a journey, and really do a lot of work as to how we're going to go there. So creating plans that are not really realistic or executable within the time frame is one mistake. Um, the other mistake that I see people do with planning, especially when it's just kind of them, is that they lose integrity in it. And what by that I mean is they stop keeping their word.
Mhm.
They stop, you know, um, they stop following the plan.
Okay.
Sometimes because something goes off.
Mhm.
And so when it goes off, you go, oh, well, the plan's off.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, okay. And then you start working without a plan. But in that case, you want to come back. You want to go, okay, I said that I was going to sell $10,000 this month. I didn't do that. What is there for me to learn? Right? Where did it break down? Okay, I didn't keep my schedule. Oh, I was trying to I didn't ask for help. Oh, I'm trying to do everything myself. It's time for me to hire an assistant.
Mhm.
I said I didn't really create a game plan for how, oh, I still don't have marketing. Like, where are the breakdowns
Yeah.
that led to you not keeping that agreement? And then integrate those lessons, right?
Yep.
Integrate the lessons, meaning you now do something about what you discovered, right? That you actually change something in your process, you change something in your mindset, you change something in your execution, in your systems, to now address that thing that you discovered. When you're in operator mode and you're in reaction, something very common is to skip over those moments because your instinct is to rush on to the next. This is something you're really masterful on, Christian.
Mhm.
Like, when you hit a wall in the business, you're really great at, without any judgment, right? Without any beat up, without any like make wrong on your part, you go, okay, what happened? Like, I'm grateful for what I have. Thank you. But we could do better. What happened? And you start to ask yourself questions, and then you're really good at coming up with innovative solutions to address those problems, right? Like,
Mhm.
you've launched new products, new companies, new processes out of this type of dialogue
Yeah.
with yourself, right?
Yep.
And so that's really something that's a skill set that I cannot stress enough. It's really key. It's really valuable. You can't, when you're an operator, the instinct is just to go, okay, it didn't work. Let me move on to the next thing. Let me move on to the next fire. And it's like, no, you got to pause. You got to ask yourself these questions, and you have to implement the lessons that come out of it. Otherwise, you're going to repeat it,
Mhm.
right? Otherwise, you're going to repeat it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So I I listen. I can talk to you forever about this, because there was so many little nuggets of great wisdom you had in there. I think we can kind of go a little bit deeper on, but I also want to be respectful of people's time because for me, uh, and I took some notes here. So for me, the three notes I have, and you let me know if I got them right. I wrote here, operators solve problems, owners build systems so problems don't show up. How often do you kind of miss that? Because when you're in charge of putting out the soup, it's hard to do something else. And then we always talk about that. Also, for me, I I learned, and this is for me and from our clients, if you stay an operator for too long, you will burn out. And I'm a good example of that because I found myself on taking on two or other positions, which I should have had hired out. And I said, hey, if I do this, it's in my head. It's easier for me to do it myself. Eventually, I worked 16, 18 hours a day. Not a good thing. And so for me, what you just also said is, if you step into real ownership, you build real freedom. And that's for me the beauty of all of that. And we talk about this all the time. And for me, I have a really good friend of mine. And I actually asked him that yesterday. I said, hey, if you think of a moment where you freed yourself of something, and let's make it really simple on what was that for you and what was the impact. And for me, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said that, hey, I started out every morning doing emails. It was the first thing I did. And I cleared my email list every single day. And he called it that he clawed himself out of his inbox. And by the time he was done, half the day was gone. And so he said, I realized my business wasn't stuck because of lack of opportunity. It was stuck because I was too busy playing secretary. And so I was sitting there, I was like, what are you saying? Should we not do emails? So he says, no, I hired somebody. So if you email me now, the email doesn't come to me anymore because I hired somebody, because I decided to free myself from email. And it's as simple as that. And how many times do we get caught up? And what I loved about this story was because we get caught up in the simple things. And so what he said for me was simple. I hired an admin. They created systems, they created filters, they created templates, and they totally took over. He says it was the hardest thing for him because the first few things he always said, it felt like somebody took my car keys away. Okay. Because it was like I didn't know what to do with myself. But he says within a few weeks, something amazing happened. He said, I had hours of my time back. Those hours turned into strategy calls, bigger deals, and even actually, he said, my revenue grew. Most importantly, my stress dropped. And he said, now when I think back, it was the damn email. And he said, not that I'm not telling you to send emails, but for me, he said, it was this thing. I started at 8 o'clock in the morning and I was done by 2 because I wanted to send that email, follow up with people. And he said, I kind of got caught in that. And now he says, now we are delegated. Um, I not only did I get time back, I got creative time back, the stuff I'm good at,
Yeah.
and I'm creating capacity. And he says, he says the only way I know how to tell you, Christian, is I took a $10 an hour job, and I get 10,000 in return. And
Yeah.
for me, that was such a powerful story because how often do we get caught up in that simple thing? So if you're a restaurateur, hey, I'm working the pizza station today because somebody calls out. How about, oh, I work the saute station because I just, this guy's short. And for me, as he said that, I was sitting there after my call. I sat there, I was like, whew, how many times did I get caught in that? What else could I do to
Yeah.
free myself? It was, he made that simple story about an email. And he said, my email, I had them filed. It was always perfect. He says, I had the best looking email. But he said, it cost me a lot of money. So now I want to turn it back to you, Gary. When you move from operator to owner, and maybe you could do one of your personal story. What was your biggest mind shift to make this happen? Because for me, all of the things my friend told me yesterday is so simple, but it's a mind shift. Because sometimes I said, oh, I just do it because it's, you know what, I get away from things and I don't need to think about something else. But as he said to me, hey, I took a $10 an hour job and I realized it cost me 10,000 to for me on my creative side, and what I was able to build. For me, that was really humbling because we get caught so much or so often in this. So now, how about for
Yeah.
you? What was the mind shift for you to do? Because you're really good at
That's
that.
a really good example you gave. So I think the biggest, so there's an ownership, there's a mindset shift that starts to happen in the ownership part, as you alluded. Um, there's definitely a building out of looking how can I leverage myself and leverage my time and leverage my skills. So definitely systemizing everything. Even how do I make a decision? Right. I was just on a coaching call with a client and they were like, I keep overcommitting. And I'm like, well, what's your
Mhm,
process for determining whether you choose a commitment or not? Oh, I don't know. I just whether I want to do it. I'm like, no. Like, so for example, for me, I don't say yes to anything without first looking at my calendar and looking at everything I have going on. And then second, I look to see how much time is this thing you're asking me to do going to take? And do I have the time in my calendar without impacting other things that I'm doing? Like there's a process that I go through, and then I check in whether do I want to do that, right? Like
mhm.
what's your process for doing
Okay.
that? Um, the most obvious thing that I can think of to answer your question is similar to the email your colleague hiring. When you are a solopreneur, when you're starting out, hiring people can seem like I'm not making that much money yet, or I don't have the money. And then the question becomes to me is like, okay, how much money, how many sales can I close
Yeah.
by paying an extra $100 a week, right? Your first part-time person can be, just that, a couple $100 a week, if you leverage some of the um, virtual assistants overseas now, as many most of us do, as many people do. So
Mhm,
it's like when you're an operator, you look at how much is this going to cost me. When you're in
mhm.
ownership mode, you look at what can I get out of this investment? What am I going to be
Yeah.
able, how much more money will I be able to make out of this investment? How many more sales
Mhm,
can I close? How much more marketing can I put out? How much more follow-up can I put out? And when you're in ownership mode, you also start prioritizing different things. So when you're an operator, you tend to prioritize the emergency. And if I'm using air quotes for emergency, when you're in ownership mode, you start to operate the decisions that are going to have a bigger return, the decisions that are going to, sometimes the emergency is not really an emergency. It's just like an emergency in your head, an emergency in your ego, an emergency, but is that emergency? I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Maybe the emergency is I have to put out my next post,
yeah.
but do you make money from posts? Right? Like, is that a way that your business makes money, or do you make money from going to networking events or doing follow up? Every business is different.
Mhm,
You might
mhm.
make money from posts, so in that case, yeah, prioritize that.
Yeah.
But if that's not how your business makes money, which most businesses don't make money from posting, it's just there to create social proof or to reinforce brand. If that's the case, then is that really the emergency that you're making it out to be? Is it, or should you spend the first next hour following up with the three people that you met or that are waiting for something from you,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
When you start to being ownership mode, you start to get out of that day-to-day reaction and you start to really make more of those types of decisions.
I love that. And every time we talk about this, it reminds me so much of why we're doing our book
Hmm.
course. Because for me, it's as simple as that. If you thought authorship is just for other people, because hey, I'm just nobody, nobody really knows me. You need to realize that writing your story is really about influence. It's about credibility and it's about legacy. Because a book isn't just about pages, is a business card on steroids. It opens doors, it creates opportunity, and it gives you the clarity like nothing else. We have, and I hope in our current process, we have two individuals and they which do an amazing job. And the first one is a former senior master sergeant for the Air Force, and he writes about all of the things he had to overcome. And he has to retire in a few weeks because he's 60. And just for me, the person who started the course, he will launch the book in just a few weeks, and we're gonna do a special podcast for him on it. Is it's not just the book itself. He wrote for me the most transforming thing was who he
Hmm.
became in this.
Hmm.
He's so clear when he talks about it. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, but he's so good about it. Then we also have Ufuk. Ufuk is he looks at consulting from a financial because he's a CFO. And when he shares something, and he when we get together as a group, he doesn't share often, but when he shares, it's so powerful because when he brings that piece into a conversation, the whole financial piece, because the end of the day, it's all about finances. I don't care how you spin it, and he has that innate ability of making it user friendly. So for me, those two guys are absolutely amazing. And what I realized through both of them is your story isn't optional because if you have built it, if you have led it, if you had to overcome something, the world needs it. And you have a responsibility to do that, Buck. Because if you had to overcome something, if you had to learn something, there's a very good chance there's millions of people out there that are struggling with the same thing. They need to make that happen. So, but let's make it practical.
Well, hold
Practical.
on. I want to say something to that. Because when one of the things that gets in the way for people from writing their book and making the impact and that they want to make is that they're stuck in operator mode,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because
love that.
when you're stuck in
Yes,
operator mode,
yes.
again, you're putting out fires. Who the hell has time to write a book when you're like putting out fires, right? But when you take on that commitment of writing your book as you the declaration of it and the engagement of it forces you to climb up
Hmm.
to ownership,
I
right?
love that.
Because
I
you
love.
have to now start to systemize your process so that you can document it in a book. You have to start to really
Mhm,
articulate who you are and what you care about so that you can put it in your book. And the coaching and the resources and the courses that you offer allow people to climb that with more ease and
mhm,
facility because again you're bringing the system, you're bringing the
mhm,
strategy in the system, whether it's like if you have to go now create a system for writing a book on top of creating a system for your business on top of creating, it's like, you know Christian's process is going to say, no, I got this part down for you.
mhm,
And my process is going to walk you through how to articulate these other
mhm,
areas. So going through that is declaring that and taking that on is an amazing way to climb you out of operator and really push you not just into author, I mean not just into ownership, but really into the author phase, which is where you now are stepping into your authority, stepping into you leveraging yourself as a social matter expert, leveraging your knowledge which supports you in getting
Yeah.
funding for the company, supports your marketing for the
Mhm.
company, supports your the joint ventures that you can do with other strategic partners. Like there's just a huge ripple effect that happens when you're now playing the game on that level.
I love that. I love that. See, that's why you're so good at it. You're so good at in breaking it down because for us, when we do the course, we go through 3 phases. We start out, it's all about you. How can we pick your brain to get the book to where it needs to be? Then it becomes us. It's you and me and the team to make it work. And then we move to them. So we always tell our clients it's simple. It's you, us, and them. Because when you get to them and you make an impact for the people which reading the book and how you design the book. Because one of the things we always tell our clients is you get really clear in the beginning of writing the book. What is the intent of the book? Because if you write a biography, but you want it to be a promotion of your new restaurant,
Mhm.
it might not go. So if you get really clear what the book is intended to be, the way I write it is different. And we learned this the hard way because for me, I was used to, I wrote 14 books with a big publishing company and we had a budget of 150 grand a book. And it was easy. Oh, we just made a mistake. We just fixed it. But when you're on your own and you try to do it for 10 grand, the decisions are a lot more impacted. So for me, narrowing down is just, I think we really, or no, we're really good at helping people narrow down what is the book
Yeah.
being used for. And then how your voice shows up in there is different for anything else. So, but I want to make it practical for
Yeah.
everybody. And everybody knows we love threes. Okay, for me. Um, what lessons can the audience take away from listening to us right now? And for me, lesson one, that's all about you. And maybe you can talk a little bit about it. I call it the leadership in stewardship, not control. So, can you talk to us a little bit about lesson one, what people walk away from by listening this and looking at our 4 week series we did here?
Yeah, I think that, um, leadership is it's really your secret weapon, and it's not
Mhm.
and leadership, so commitment, responsibility, ownership, vision, authenticity,
Mhm.
those are all leadership distinctions.
Yeah.
Those are all leadership distinctions, and if you focus on how do I develop my capacity to lead myself, how
Yeah.
do I develop my
Love that.
capacity to you know make hard decisions, to have difficult conversations, to hold the vision when it's hard, to manage distractions, to like whatever it is that whatever
Mhm.
area in your business or leadership you're struggling with, how do I develop that capacity? One of the
Yeah.
myths of leadership is that we're either good at something or we're not, or they were born a
Mhm.
leader, or that some people that's for them. I promise you, anyone who's been in any type of leadership position will tell you, "Oh no, I paid lessons for that. I learned the hard way. I made mistakes." Right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, some of them very, very, very expensive mistakes, right? So not just like pain, but like monetarily, like, the bigger
Mhm.
the business, the bigger the mistakes, the more they cost. So it just, the idea that leadership is really your tool, and you should be invested in developing that for yourself and making sure that you're
Yeah.
growing in whatever capacity you grow. If you do that, it's gonna empower your business. It's gonna empower your
Mhm.
growth. Well, I think, it's so often founders and business owners only get interested in leadership when they
Yeah.
when they have a team, you know?
Correct. When
And
we
it's
have,
like, no,
yeah,
that's too
yeah.
late now because now you're playing catch up, now you're like trying to learn this thing while you're like in the middle of it. Like, no, start working on that from the very beginning. And and,
Love
and,
that.
and you're gonna it's gonna pay folds, you know.
so good, so good. Lesson one, we call from leadership, or leadership is stewardship, not control. So, and then lesson two, we talk about this a lot. We call it time is the messenger and failure becomes your framework. What does that mean? If people follow me, they know I just put out Culinary Kung Fu, which was a book I wanted to write for 15 years. My oldest daughter did Wushu Kung Fu, and every time I sat down and I watched them, I was sitting there, wow. I said, this is so much like cooking. In cooking, you don't do 4,000 things one time. You do one thing 4,000 times and it becomes repetitious. And I always said, oh, somebody needs to write a book. Somebody needs to write about culinary kung fu. And for me, that became then my book we just launched a few weeks ago. Where culinary kung fu is where we learn these little lessons we have learned in our cooking classes. How can they become life lessons? And the life lessons I, like you said earlier, had to learn the hard way. So we're sharing this in culinary kung fu. And for me, just doing this and hearing you talk about it is that framework for that book became out of my failures. It's not just because, oh, I'm so great. I honestly feel today, more of the books we're writing today coming out of failures and something I had to overcome. And I honestly believe that time is the messenger. So for me, lesson number two is time is the messenger and let failure become your framework. So now a question to our audience. If you think of a failure you had, how would you reframe it to make it a teaching moment? So write on the comments below. If you had a failure, how would you reframe it to make it a teaching moment? Because I'm telling you, if you had to overcome something, there's people lined up. It said, hey, we want to learn more about that. And then, so for us, lesson number three is you don't have to be ready. You just have to be real.
Amen.
And for me, I hear this all the time, and people say, "Oh, I can't write a book because it's not perfect yet. Oh, I need to wait until it's perfect for the story." And that day never comes. And people start and say, "Hey, I need to hire this person because I want it to be perfect." The day never comes. And I'm sure you work with people all the time which wait for times to be perfect.
And I do it
And
myself.
doesn't.
I'm guilty of that too. It's like getting caught up in stuff that at the end of the day, you're the only one that's even going to notice that little thing. Or my favorite way to obsess is like about design and market. It's like the old designer in me. It's like, no, we have to get this. And meanwhile, nobody's
We have to put.
going to notice. Nobody's going to notice.
And you know what the thing is? We know this. And I think for me, the hardest thing with a lot of things is letting people do their own stuff because I have my own opinion or I read about it. And sometimes I just walk away and I tell my staff, just do it, because if I give you feedback, we will have what we always had and didn't work. We want something else. That's why I need you to do this. And to our listeners, I want you to think about what story could you share this week that would inspire your team, your audience, the people you work with. I honestly want you, and write it on the comments below. What story could you share this week that would inspire your team and your audience? And through all of this, Gary, you know that, is the simpler the story, the more people relate to it. And I always use the example. I was in this horrific accident. Was in the hospital for a month, had the 4 things in my head, upper body in a cast. We driving home, and 2 miles from the hospital, a drunk driver hits us straight on. I was back in the hospital. I left 20 minutes earlier. Coma for 10 days, hospital for 14 months. An amazing story. Nobody can relate to it. But for me, if I say, hey, I came into my restaurant, whatever, and I realized 4 people called out sick. How you overcame that is what is a teaching moment for people. I have one of our book writing students. She writes about type 2 diabetes. She grew up with type 2 diabetes. She says, Christian, nobody wants to know about type 2 diabetes. And I said, but you look amazing. How do you eat? And you could see she lights up and she talks about it. She says, oh, I do this, I do this, this. She finally got a book done, type 2 diabetes. And not only is she amazingly good at it, the food looks amazing, the taste amazing. It's just really, really well done. The most amazing thing about it is now where she has a following and people pay her multiple thousands of dollars a month to be part of her type 2 program, not only is she making a good living, the people which are part of that, she says, oh my God, I realized they live 5, 10 years longer. So how dare you not writing the book
Yeah.
earlier? And I think we all stuck in this. We want to wait for this perfect time. And we realize the perfect time is now. Doing it is now. Because that perfect day never comes. And when the perfect day comes, we never have the time or the guts or the audacity, I call it, to write that book. And for me, if I look at all of the people which we have currently in our book course, there's some really amazing pieces of work coming out. And I have some people which are at the beginning of that. I see how they're evolving. But for me, it is our goal is that we want to help 1 million people write a book over the next 10 years, because I know a book can not only change your life, it can change the life of your readers. And that's for me the coolest thing about it. So, Gary, we almost an hour. So I want to kind of take a little recap. And for any of the listeners, if you write below workbook, we will send you the full workbook. Our giveaway on the whole roadmap we talked about over the last 4 weeks, which is really simple. Operator, doing the work. Owner, leading the work. The author is documenting the journey, and the authority is scaling with influence. And that's really as simple as it is for us to do this. So if you want to get your hands on it, just write in the comments below, hey, DM Christian, hey, can you send me the workbook? I'm more than happy to send you the workbook. So what was the biggest lesson you have learned over the last 4 weeks, Gary? And by the way, let me start first, because there's a few things I learned about you. We all feel stuck in some small stuff. If you're an operator, owner, author, whatever, we are stuck. But we all need somebody who sees in us what we don't see in ourselves. And you're amazingly good at that. And if anybody's listening, I want you to go and check out Gary and spend some time with him, because you will see he's amazing, good at it. And then also the final thing is, I can't believe this is the end of our 4 weeks journey here. I want to do that again. You're so good at it. I want me more Gary.
Now.
So what was a lesson or learning you had over the last 4 weeks?
Oh my God. I think, honestly, my biggest takeaway was just learning from you. You just, I think that I've been more stuck in the ownership level, and you just really got me thinking about being at the author level and articulating and getting my message out to more people. It's something that I do a lot through my speaking and through through the coaching that I do. But I think that I'm just inspired to really systemize that and go through that process, because I think that it's just going to even elevate my leadership and my coaching to a whole other level, right? So that's been, learning from you in that regard has been my favorite part. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And it wouldn't be the right thing if you don't have a little call to action for our audience here. So I sincerely mean it. If your story or your message matters, and I know it does, but it only matters if you tell it. So don't be waiting for the perfect time. Start now. I honestly tell you, start now and write that book. Do what you need to do to get into our course, because when you take your idea, your learning, your story from idea to a published book in 8 weeks or less, I'm telling you, it will change not just who you are, it will change how you show up for everybody else you work with, because you get crystal clear on what the book is all about, how you can help people, and how you can tell the story in a different way. And that for me is the greatest thing ever. So if you write below and some, we work out a great deal for you to come on, because we want you to come on and get this book done before the end of the year. And if you hear today or anytime when you listen to this, and you know your story is bigger than the grind, you need to take the next step and connect with Gary, because the world needs what only you can share, and the world needs it now. And Gary is so good at it, helping you break this thing down and give your voice, give your vision shape. And for me, we all need a little Gary in our life. And you and I talk about this a lot, because for me, I caught myself as we made notes for today. I was sitting here last night. I says, shit, what would Gary think? And how will Gary tell a story? How can we make it not just actionable, but we want to make sure that the people listening to this get a ton of value out of this. And Gary was very gracious of giving us, 4 hours of his time this week or this month to kind of go through that with me. And for me, I'm just really grateful for not just your friendship, but for your time.
Thank you.
Because spending the time with you here this beautiful month of August was just amazing. And I learned so much. I looked here while you were speaking earlier. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 pages of notes. And your energy is really amazing. And Gary, every time we talk about this, your authenticity shines, and your framework brings structure to what we want to do. And I'm absolutely thankful for that. And I really appreciate having
Thank you, brother. It means the world to me. I appreciate you so much.
Same here. And to our listeners, if you write below workbook, I'm more than happy to send you the workbook for the day, and which recaps all of the 4 weeks we talked about. So with that, I want to say thanks for being here, because I know if you listen to this, you can go from operator to owner to author, and you can turn your story into authority. So with that, I want to say thanks for being here today. And Gary, I really appreciate you. And to our listeners, write your comments below. What did you like about Gary? What didn't you
tell
like
me what
about
you
Gary?
didn't like.
Now is the time to talk some smack. But no, I really appreciate it. With that, thanks
you.
everybody. And we see you